All right. Hello and welcome to CSE 416. I'm Zefan. This is section 2, and today we are going to recap on rich and LASSO concepts, which we almost done by the lectures through the week. Let's take a look at our agenda for today's session. We will start by reviewing the basics of regularization with rich and LASSO, and after that, we were reviewing the code of the standard scalar rich and LASSO by the Python. So, what is regularization? Anyone? The regularization is a technique used to prevent overfitting in machine learning models by controlling the size of coefficients in the model. The main objective of regularization is to ensure the model does not overfit the data. When a model overfits, it learns the training data too well and ends up performing poorly on new data. So by constraining the size of the coefficients, regularization helps to simplify the model and reduce its complexity. So here we have a graph. There are some small little black points here, and we got blue lines basically going across, trying to fit these points. Let's also just do a recap for last week's material. Is this a high variance or high bias? High variance, right? Since this blue line just trying to get too close to these points, and it just basically follows the pattern, and it's too sticky. I think here should be kind of like I think it should be a linear line here, but it's actually not. That's why we need the regularization to help us to find the good pattern. I mean, appropriate pattern here. So let's talk about some numbers that summarize the magnitude of the coefficients in the W. So we have sum of absolute values, and sum of squares. The first way we talk about was the sum of coefficients. But what we learned might be wrong with that. Suppose like we have a really large positive coefficients and a really big negative coefficients. Like when you're trying to add them, like we will get a very small num. So I mean very small sum. So this isn't a really good regularization technique. And then this leads us to two other techniques we talk about in the class. The sum of absolute values, also known as the error norm, which we used in LASSO regularization, and the sum of squares, also known as R2 norm, like which we use in rich regularization. So before we use this little boy to help us to minimize the loss, and after we introduce the concept of regularization, we have this R